President Biden's domestic agenda remains very much up in the air tonight. Let's sort through it with the issues with tonight's Bream Team panel. Former Biden campaign surrogate Kevin Walling and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo. Welcome back to you both, gentlemen.
Hey, Shannon, good to be with you.
Want to put up the most recent polling from Fox News just a couple of weeks ago from President Biden's job performance, approval, disapproval. He's upside down on this actually by 9 points on foreign policy. It's not one of the things that currently Americans, most of them think that he is doing well or that is his strength. John, what do you think are the bigger challenges for him right now, domestic or foreign?
I think right now foreign policy is, but while he's focusing on foreign policy, the threats of China and Russia, while he's distracted by global warming, he's letting his domestic agenda slip away. He just lost Joe Manchin on his voting rights bill. He's just lost Joe Manchin on trying to get rid of the filibuster, which threatens the rest of his domestic agenda. Meanwhile, I think he's trying to herd the cats in Europe unsuccessfully to put up a common front against China. He's not really sure what to do about Russia. Saying mean things to Vladimir Putin's not going to get him to stop harboring cyber attackers on American infrastructure. And so I worry that he's going to come back from this foreign trip with very little to show from it and having let his domestic agenda slip away.
Yeah, the challenges here at home do include, as you mentioned, Senator Manchin and other Democrats who indicate that they aren't going to get on board with some of the more progressive ideas or votes that the Democrats, the more progressive left part of the party, would like to see happen. Here is something that Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat who ran for president, says about getting some of those things done and Democrats who aren't cooperating.
I get it. We've had some bumps this week. But that doesn't mean that we give up. It means we double down. We get rid of the filibuster. We cannot throw our democracy over a cliff in order to protect a Senate rule that isn't even part of the Constitution.
Kevin, it sounds like she's missing some key votes, though, for more than just Senator Manchin when it comes to doing some of the more extreme things like getting rid of the filibuster.
Yeah, Shannon, it's a good point. And you saw the president just last week speak about the limitations with a 50-50 Senate and a 5-vote majority in the House of Representatives. But I'm actually encouraged with what I'm seeing out of Congress. We saw, for example, a $250 billion competitive bill mainly aimed at China pass the Senate with 68 votes today, including Mitch McConnell and the vast majority of Democrats. That's headed to the House. That has the support of the president. That's something that he can take with him overseas when he's talking about competitiveness with China, as John mentions, or to hold Russia to account in terms of his cybersecurity executive order that he released 2 weeks ago. So I'm happy to see John downplay any kind of successes coming out of this 7-day trip overseas, because I think the president's going to knock it out of the park.
We'll see. The world is watching the first big trip as officially now the president, and with some very big heavy hitters on this table of issues he's got to handle over there. I want to ask you all about some late breaking news, and I'm not sure if you have been able to see this tonight, but I want to put up something a little bit earlier this week. I think this was Monday that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tweeted. She said, "We must have the same level of accountability and justice for all victims of crimes against humanity. We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban." So the U.S. and Israel thrown in with Hamas and the Taliban. Tonight, a group of House Democrats, I believe about a dozen of them, have just put out a statement saying this about that tweet. Equating the United States and Israel to Hamas and the Taliban is as offensive as it is misguided. The United States and Israel are imperfect, but false equivalencies give cover to terrorist groups. We urge Congresswoman Omar to clarify her words, placing the U.S. and Israel in the same category and Hamas as Hamas and the Taliban. John, comment from you?
Well, first, this effort to draw moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas, I think, is just wrong. Israel's been acting in its self-defense. They were not the one to launch any kind of offensive operations. They're not the ones who are hiding installations behind civilian targets. Israel, I think, has actually gone far beyond what most nations would in fighting a war to try to separate combatants from civilians. And the United States, you're right, has made mistakes in the past. Nothing compares to, I think, what the Chinese are doing to the Uyghurs, what Russia has done to its own minorities, and also what the Palestinian leadership in Hamas and Fatah have done to their own populations.
And Kevin, what would you like to see from the Congresswoman as far as clarifying that statement? It sounds pretty clear, but these House Democrats, her fellow colleagues, are now stepping up to say, you got to clean this up.
Yeah, Shannon, I'm in total agreement with John. These kinds of statements are wrong, are dangerous, are hugely problematic. She needs to not just retract this statement, but apologize. So I'm with these Democrats that have come out forcefully against this, because to John's point, there is no moral equivalency with the United States and a terrorist organization like Hamas.
All right, gentlemen, much more to discuss, but we've got to go for now. So please come back soon, Kevin and John. Thank you both.
Thanks, Shannon. Good to be with you.